Welcome to Eddie Invests. We're diving into Morgan Housel's incredible book, The Psychology of Money, to tackle a really important question. How in the world does a janitor sometimes end up wealthier than a CEO? And let me tell you, the answer has almost nothing to do with how smart you are and everything to do with how you behave. So let's get right into it.
All right, let's start with a real-life puzzle here. On one side, you've got Ronald Read. He was a janitor who pretty quietly built up an $8 million fortune. Then on the other side, you have Rajat Gupta, Harvard-educated CEO, started with $100 million and lost it all. See, this isn't really a story about finance. It's a story about psychology.
And that right there is the absolute heart of this whole book. Financial success? It's not a hard science like physics or chemistry. It's a soft skill. It's so much less about what you know, spreadsheets, formulas, all that, and so much more about how you actually behave with your money. Getting this one simple insight right can literally change your entire financial future.
But, okay, before we start looking at the behaviors that we can control, we have to stop and acknowledge two huge, invisible forces that are always shaping our financial outcomes: luck and its twin, risk.
The truth is, nothing is ever really as good or as bad as it seems on the surface. Why? Because your hard work is just one part of the equation. It's just the tip of the iceberg. Underneath the water, these powerful, invisible currents of luck and risk are always pushing and pulling. And trust me, ignoring them is a massive, massive mistake. Just think about the story of Bill Gates. Was he brilliant? Absolutely, no question. But he was also unbelievably lucky. His high school had a computer back in the 1960s. That was a 1 in a million shot. His friend Kent Evans was right there with him, just as smart, just as driven. But Kent got hit by the other side of that coin, risk. He died in a tragic accident before they even graduated. So you've got the same skill, the same drive, but two wildly different outcomes, all because of forces that were completely out of their control.
So once we accept that those outside forces exist, the focus really has to shift inward. Because a lot of the time, the biggest financial battle we're ever going to fight is the one against ourselves.
Capitalism is an incredible machine for generating two things: wealth and envy. And here's the problem. The more you get, the more you seem to want. That goalpost for what feels like enough is constantly shifting, and it's all because we can't help but compare ourselves to others. Your neighbor gets a new car, and all of a sudden yours doesn't feel so great anymore, does it?
And this brings us right back to Rajat Gupta, the CEO from the beginning. This guy had it all: wealth, power, respect. But he'd sit at tables with billionaires, and you know what? He felt small. So he risked everything he had and actually needed for something he didn't have and certainly didn't need. It's like what the author Joseph Heller once said about a billionaire: I have something he will never have, enough.
So the big question is, how do we fight back against all this? Well, the book gives us two really powerful mental models that can help us totally rewire our money brain.
Okay, first up, we have to get our heads around this idea. No one is crazy. People make financial choices that seem perfectly logical to them, based on their own unique life experiences. So what might look totally insane to you, like, say, hiding cash under a mattress, might seem completely rational to someone who grew up during a time when banks were collapsing.
Let's take lottery tickets, for example. The lowest income households spend way more on them than the highest income groups. Now, from a strictly financial spreadsheet point of view, that sounds nuts, right? But if you try to see it from their perspective, where maybe other opportunities for getting ahead just feel completely out of reach, well, a lottery ticket isn't just a gamble anymore. It's buying a piece of hope. It's a tangible dream of a different life. And suddenly it starts to make a lot more sense.
Okay, so the second mental model is all about reframing the biggest emotional challenge that every single investor has to face: market volatility, those crazy ups and downs.
Most people, when they see a market downturn, they see it as a fine. It feels like a penalty for doing something wrong. And that feeling prompts fear and panic, and it makes them want to sell everything. But the smart way to look at it is as a fee. Volatility isn't a penalty. It's simply the price of admission. It's the cost you have to pay to get access to the long-term returns the market can offer. It's just part of the deal.
And man, that fee can be incredibly steep. I mean, think about it. If you'd invested in Netflix early on, you'd be sitting on a fortune today. But to earn those returns, you would have had to stomach periods where the stock dropped as much as 80% from its peak. That is a truly gut-wrenching price to pay.
And hey, it's not just about risky individual stocks.
Even if you just bought a simple S&P 500 index fund, you would have had to live through a combined 13 years where your portfolio was down 20% or more from its high. That's the fee. That's the price for long-term growth.
And all of this brings us to the final, and I think the most important mental shift of all. This is what really separates Ronald Read, the janitor, from Rajat Gupta, the CEO. It all comes down to the real definition of wealth.
Being rich is all about what you can see. It's based on current income. It's the fancy cars, the huge houses, the Instagram posts from exotic vacations. When people say they want to be a millionaire, what they're often really dreaming about is spending $1 million. And that is being rich.
But being wealthy, that's the total opposite. Wealth is the income you don't spend. It's hidden. It's the money sitting in your investment accounts, your savings. Its purpose isn't to buy more stuff. Its real purpose is to buy you freedom, to buy you flexibility, and most importantly, control of your own time.
And that, right there, was Ronald Read's secret. His wealth wasn't in a shiny car or a big mansion. It was invisible. It was in the freedom that his unseen savings provided him. You have to remember, spending money to show people how much money you have is the fastest way to have less money.
So here's the bottom line. The crucial thing is to focus on your behavior, not just how smart you are. Learn to endure the market's ups and downs as the necessary fee it is. Build that unseen wealth that buys you freedom, not just stuff that makes you look rich. Because the highest form of wealth, the real prize, is waking up in the morning and being able to say, I can do whatever I want today.
So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. We spend so much of our lives trading our time for money. The most important financial decision you will ever make is figuring out what part of your freedom, what part of your time you refuse to sell at any price. Thanks for joining this explainer.